My boyfriend refused to post about me, but his Instagram screamed single life. Then he said, labels kill love, baby. You know, I spent 3 years of my life believing I'd found the one, only to discover the man I loved was an elaborate fraud, meticulously crafting a fake persona to manipulate strangers and me. I thought I knew Kylan, but the truth was chilling. The man I believed in was nothing more than a carefully designed character, ready to be played for anyone who showed interest, especially as a single, successful entrepreneur. It all came to a head at our anniversary dinner and the comeuppance. Oh, it was brutal. I met Kylan at a friend's party, and he immediately swept me off my feet. He spent the whole night talking about his entrepreneurial mindset, showing off photos from his solo trip to Thailand. I was captivated. His confidence was just so attractive. We clicked instantly. For the first year, it was amazing, truly. He was attentive, so romantic, and seemed genuinely invested in us. He'd write these incredibly beautiful poems, swearing I'd changed his entire perspective on love. He took me to the most fantastic restaurants, planned the most thoughtful dates. I was smitten. But looking back, there were huge red flags that I completely, utterly missed. The biggest one? His social media, specifically Instagram. Kylan had this massive following, over 15K. He posted daily, the entrepreneur lifestyle, motivational quotes, gym selfies, travel photos, business advice, the works. But in 3 years of dating, not a single photo of us. Not one. At first, I honestly wasn't bothered. I'm not big on social media myself. I post maybe once a month, usually just my dog or something I cooked. But as time went on, I started really noticing his captions. He'd post a beach photo with living the single life has its perks. Or a hiking trip we took together with freedom is everything. And on a gym selfie, the only commitment I need is to my goals. His profile bio? Entrepreneur, traveler, free spirit. Nothing, absolutely nothing about being in a relationship. 6 months ago, I finally couldn't take it anymore. We were having dinner at his apartment, and I just had to ask, why do you never acknowledge our relationship online? He gave me this condescending smile, the kind that makes your stomach churn, and said, labels kill love, baby. What we have is beyond social media. I'm building a brand here. My followers respond to freedom and independence. I pushed back, telling him it felt like he was hiding me. He immediately got defensive. Are you really going to be that girlfriend who needs validation through Instagram? He made me feel so small, so insecure for even bringing it up, like I was being clingy and irrational. I dropped it, but it gnawed at me, especially watching him constantly glued to his phone, smiling at notifications. Whenever I asked who he was texting, it was always networking connections or business associates. Then, 2 months ago, I was helping him move furniture in his apartment when I spotted a notebook on his desk. It was open to a page titled Content Calendar. What absolutely caught my eye, what made my heart drop, was a note that read, keep posts aspirational. Maintain single entrepreneur aesthetic. Female followers engage more with available men. I didn't confront him then. I couldn't. Instead, I started paying closer attention. I noticed how he'd always angle me out of photos at events. How he'd post Instagram stories of our dinners, but carefully never show me. How he'd get text notifications late at night and instantly turn his phone away from me. The evidence was stacking up, and it was crushing. 3 weeks ago, I made a decision. A drastic one. I created a fake Instagram profile. Her name was Lilith, a 25-year-old girl. I used photos of my college roommate's cousin, with her full permission, of course, who lives in another state and doesn't even have social media. I built up the profile with generic lifestyle posts and followed a bunch of entrepreneur accounts, including Kylan's. It took exactly 3 hours before Kylan followed Lilith back. And within minutes, he DM'd, hey, beautiful. Love your vision. We should connect sometime. I felt sick to my stomach, but I played along. For the next 2 weeks, we messaged daily. He sent Lilith the exact same poems he'd written for me. He suggested the exact same first date spot he'd taken me to. He told Lilith he was completely single and waiting for someone who understands his vision. When Lilith asked about his relationship status, he actually said, I've been solo for years. Freedom is essential to my journey. Some women can't handle a man who prioritizes growth over attachment. Last week, he suggested they meet up. As Lilith, I agreed and proposed the exact same upscale Italian restaurant where Kylan and I had our 3-year anniversary dinner reservation this Friday. He immediately agreed. I've been wanting to try that place, he texted back. The audacity. So, here was my plan. I was going to show up for our anniversary dinner. He thought he was meeting Lilith, but he was actually meeting me. He had no idea that I knew everything. He didn't know I'd been compiling screenshots of our conversations. He didn't know I'd already told my best friend, Stacy, everything. I didn't just want to break up with him. I wanted him to face what he'd done. I wanted him to sit across from me and explain why he'd been living this double life. Why he'd been making me feel crazy for having perfectly normal expectations. Why he thought I was stupid enough not to find out. Our reservation was for 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night. He'd been talking about how excited he was for our anniversary all week. This morning, he even sent me flowers at work with a card that read, "To many more years together." Meanwhile, he told Lilith he'd meet her at the bar at 7:15, 15 minutes before our actual reservation. His plan was obviously to meet her for a drink, charm her, exchange numbers, and then seamlessly transition to dinner with me. The restaurant has these semi-private booths, so he probably thought he could pull it off without running into anyone he knew. I decided to arrive at 7:10 and sit at the bar where I could see him come in. I was going to watch him look for Lilith. I was going to watch him check his phone when she didn't show up. And then, at exactly 7:30, I was going to walk up to him for our anniversary dinner. I kept running through different scenarios in my head. Would he try to lie his way out of it? Would he blame me somehow? Would he beg for forgiveness? I'd practiced what I was going to say so many times, but I was still so nervous about how it would actually play out. Yesterday, he texted me asking what I was wearing so we could coordinate. I told him I bought a new red dress for the occasion. He texted back that he couldn't wait to see me in it. An hour later, he messaged Lilith asking what she was wearing so he could recognize her at the bar. Lilith told him she'd be in a blue dress. He responded, "Blue is my favorite color. I bet it brings out your eyes." I'd already packed up most of my things from his apartment while he was at a networking event last weekend. He hadn't even noticed that half my clothes were gone, or that I'd taken all my expensive skincare products. I also had all the screenshots saved and backed up to my cloud storage. Part of me wanted to send them to his mom, who adored me and was always asking when we were getting married, but another part of me just wanted a clean break after I confronted him. Stacy thought I should record the whole conversation, but that felt like crossing a line. I just wanted him to know that I wasn't as naive as he thought I was. I didn't know what would happen after that night. We'd been together for 3 years. We'd talked about marriage, kids, buying a house. It was all a lie. The moment arrived. I was sitting in my car in the restaurant parking lot, shaking with anger, but also weirdly calm. I could see his car already there. He was early, which he never was for our dates. He was early for Lilith. 3 years, about to be over because he couldn't even pretend to be committed on Instagram. Because labels kill love. Well, so does lying. I arrived at 7:05, 5 minutes earlier than planned. I parked a few spots away from Kylan's car and took a moment to check my makeup. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, the red dress I'd told him about, paired with the diamond earrings he gave me for Christmas last year. I wanted to look exactly like myself, not someone trying to catch a cheater. Walking into the restaurant, I spotted Kylan immediately. He was sitting at the bar, looking anxiously at the door every time it opened. He was wearing a new blue button-down shirt, exactly what Lilith said she'd be wearing, not coordinating with my red dress like we discussed. First betrayal of the evening, already confirmed. I stood in the entryway where he couldn't see me. The hostess approached, asking if I had a reservation. I explained I was surprising someone and pointed to Kylan. She smiled, letting me wait, probably thinking I was planning something romantic. If only. For 15 minutes, I watched him. He checked his phone constantly, typed messages to Lilith, obviously. Fixed his hair in the mirror behind the bar. He ordered a whiskey neat, his impressive drink for first dates, not the wine he usually shared with me. At exactly 7:30, when our actual reservation time arrived, I walked up behind him. He was so focused on the door, waiting for Lilith. He didn't notice me until I placed my hand on his shoulder. When he turned and saw me, his expression cycled through confusion, shock, and then a forced, manic happiness so quickly it was almost comical. "Milana," he exclaimed, standing up awkwardly. "You look amazing, but you're early for our reservation." I smiled. "No, I'm exactly on time for 7:30. He's the one who's early." Then I asked him, "Who are you waiting for, Kylan?" The panic in his eyes was immediate. He stammered, claiming he just wanted to have a drink before dinner, that's all. The hostess interrupted, saying our table was ready. As we followed her, Kylan kept checking over his shoulder toward the entrance. I asked if he was looking for someone. He denied it, saying he thought he saw a business contact. Once seated, I maintained the charade for about 10 minutes, making small talk about my day while he grew increasingly distracted, checking his phone under the table. Finally, I'd had enough. I reached across the table, took his phone from his hands, and asked, "Are you looking for Lilith?" The color drained from his face. He asked, "How do you know that name?" Instead of answering, I took out my own phone, opened Instagram, and switched to the Lilith account right in front of him. His eyes widened as he finally understood. "You catfished me," was his first response. Like I was the one who did something wrong, the audacity of this man. I explained calmly that I created the profile after noticing his single aesthetic online and his secretive behavior. I asked why he told Lilith he'd been solo for years when we'd been together for 3. He tried several tactics in rapid succession. First, he claimed it was just marketing for his brand, that appearing single helped him get more followers and business opportunities. When I didn't buy that for a second, he switched to claiming he was testing me because he suspected I was cheating. When I laughed at that absurdity, he pivoted again. Then came the gaslighting. He tried telling me I was overreacting to something harmless. That messaging other women didn't mean anything because he never actually met up with them, that I was insecure and controlling for monitoring his social media presence. I cut him off mid-sentence and placed my phone on the table. Screen up, showing our conversation as Lilith. I scrolled through, highlighting key points. Him sending Lilith the exact poems he wrote for me. Him scheduling our anniversary dinner as a first date with another woman. Him explicitly stating he was single. That's when he switched to damage control. His eyes got all sad, and his voice dropped to that soft, apologetic tone. He admitted he messed up, but insisted it was just online flirting that never went anywhere physical. He claimed he loved me but struggled with commitment and attention-seeking behavior. He actually started crying, saying he needed help, therapy, whatever I wanted. I looked him dead in the eye and asked directly, "How many others have there been, Kylan?" He hesitated just long enough for me to know the answer wasn't 0. Then claimed there had been some flirting, but nothing serious and never physical. I didn't believe him for a second. The waiter approached to take our order. Clearly sensing the tension, I looked at Kylan and said we wouldn't be staying. Then I stood up and walked out. He followed me to the parking lot, getting increasingly desperate. He begged me not to throw away 3 years over a stupid mistake. He promised to delete Instagram completely. He even said he'd been planning to propose on our upcoming trip next month, a complete lie. We had no trip planned. I got in my car, rolled down the window, and told him I'd be by tomorrow to get the rest of my things from his apartment. He kept saying we needed to talk more, that I couldn't just end things like this. I drove away with him still standing there in the parking lot. When I got home, I had 37 missed calls and over 50 texts from him. I didn't read them all, but they ranged from apologetic to angry to manipulative. The last one I saw before blocking his number said, "You set me up. That's not love. You clearly wanted a way out of this relationship." I thought I'd feel relieved or vindicated after confronting him, but mostly I just felt tired. 3 years with someone who could so easily live a double life. 3 years of believing in a relationship that apparently meant nothing to him the moment an attractive profile sent a DM. But here's where things got even more twisted. At around 2 a.m., I got a notification from Instagram. Kylan had unblocked the Lilith account. Yes, he blocked it right after our confrontation and then sent a long message. He claimed I misunderstood everything. That he knew it was me all along and was playing along to teach me a lesson about trust. That my little test proved I never trusted him, and now he couldn't trust me either. I didn't respond, but I took screenshots of everything. The next morning, I texted his roommate, Shane, who I'd always gotten along with, asking when would be a good time to come get my remaining stuff. Shane called me immediately confused. Apparently, Kylan told him we'd just had a small fight, but were working things out. He had no idea we broke up. Shane was genuinely shocked when I explained what happened, and told me to come over at noon when Kylan would be at his weekly pickup basketball game. When I arrived, Shane helped me load my things into my car. While packing, he mentioned something that made my stomach drop. Kylan had been bringing women to their apartment when I was out of town for work. Shane assumed they were just friends because, well, Kylan was in a relationship with me. He never suspected anything until now. Shane also revealed something else. Kylan had been planning a Vegas trip with some business contacts next weekend, a trip he never mentioned to me. Shane saw the hotel confirmation on their shared printer. 1 room, 2 guests. When Shane asked about it, Kylan said it was a last-minute networking opportunity. I finished gathering my things, thanked Shane, and left. As I was pulling out of the parking lot, Kylan's car turned in. He saw me and blocked the exit with his car, jumping out and demanding to know what I was doing at his place. I rolled down my window and simply told him I got my stuff and that Shane knows everything. Kylan's face changed. He started saying Shane was lying, that he's always been jealous of our relationship, that I can't trust anything he says. I told him to move his car or I'd call building security. He eventually moved, but followed me for several blocks, calling repeatedly from different numbers when he realized I'd blocked his. When I got home, I found he'd reached out to Stacy on Instagram, spinning some ridiculous story about me having mental health issues and misunderstanding our relationship status. Stacy shut him down immediately, but it showed how far he'd go to control the narrative. The wildest part? He'd already changed his Instagram bio to "Healing from Betrayal. Trust is everything," and posted a cryptic black and white photo with the caption, "When someone shows you who they really are, believe them." Like, he's the victim here. I wasn't going to tell his mom what happened, but she called me that afternoon asking why Kylan was posting such strange things online. I told her we broke up, but kept the details vague. She pressed for more information, saying Kylan told her I'd gone crazy and created fake profiles to test him. That's when I finally explained the whole situation. She apologized profusely and said she'd be having a very serious conversation with her son. Shane texted me an hour later saying, Kylan is telling everyone who will listen that I'm unstable and obsessive, that I manufactured this whole scenario because I was afraid he was going to break up with me. He'd even shown people our text conversations that he'd edited to remove context and make me look irrational. I wasn't worried about people believing him. Anyone who knows me knows that's not who I am. But I was concerned about what other manipulation tactics he might try. I stayed with Stacy for a few days just to be safe. His audacity truly knew no bounds. He posted a series of Instagram stories about forgiveness and understanding the whole story. Then he tagged me in a throwback photo from a year ago with the caption, "Missing what was real." I immediately untagged myself and made my profile private. It was getting exhausting. It's been exactly 1 week since the restaurant confrontation. To those who predicted Kylan wouldn't just accept the breakup and move on, you were absolutely right. After staying at Stacy's for 3 days, I returned to my apartment on Monday, thinking the worst was over. I was wrong. That afternoon, I got a call from my sister, Lena, asking if I was okay because Kylan had reached out to her on Facebook. He told her he was worried about my mental health and asked her to check on me because I was making up stories about him. My sister and I are extremely close, so she immediately knew something was off. I filled Lena in on everything, and she was livid. Turns out Kylan hadn't just messaged her. He'd contacted several people in my family, including my dad. My dad called me that evening, confused why my troubled boyfriend was asking him to stage some kind of intervention for me. I spent an hour explaining the whole situation, including showing him screenshots of the Lilith conversations. Dad went from confused to absolutely furious in record time and told me he'd handle Kylan if he contacted our family again. Tuesday morning, I walked into work to find a massive bouquet of roses on my desk. The card simply said, "We need to talk. 3 years deserves more than this." I immediately took the flowers to the break room for anyone to take and threw away the card. My coworker, Giovanna, saw me and asked what was going on. When I explained briefly, she mentioned that a really intense guy had delivered them himself instead of a florist and had asked her multiple questions about my schedule and whether I was seeing anyone new. I was getting seriously uncomfortable with his behavior, so I messaged Shane to see if Kylan had mentioned any other plans to contact me. Shane called me immediately, sounding stressed. He told me Kylan had been acting erratic, staying up all night obsessively checking social media and ranting about how I'd ruined his brand and damaged his reputation. Shane also revealed that Kylan had canceled his mysterious Vegas trip and had been inviting different women over each night since our breakup. He also overheard Kylan on the phone telling someone he was going to fix things with Milana one way or another. Shane was worried enough about Kylan's state of mind that he wanted to warn me. He also mentioned he was looking for a new apartment because the situation was getting too weird. Wednesday afternoon, I was leaving work when I spotted Kylan sitting in his car in the parking lot. I immediately turned around and went back inside, asking a male coworker to walk me to my car later. When we eventually went out, Kylan's car was gone, but there was a handwritten letter tucked under my windshield wiper. I didn't even read it, just threw it away. I wasn't giving him the satisfaction of knowing his tactics were working. By Thursday, I was seriously considering a restraining order, but I wasn't sure if what he'd done so far would qualify. I called a local legal aid office, and they said that while his behavior was concerning, I needed more documentation of explicit threats or repeated unwanted contact after clearly telling him to stop. So, I started keeping a detailed log of every interaction and saving every message. That evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. It was Kylan's mother. She was calling to apologize for her son's behavior and to let me know she was trying to get him to seek therapy. She sounded genuinely concerned and embarrassed. She also warned me that Kylan had always had trouble accepting rejection and might continue trying to contact me. I thanked her for the call, but kept it brief. While I appreciated her reaching out, I wasn't interested in getting pulled back into Kylan's drama through his family. Friday night was when things really escalated. I was having dinner at a restaurant with Stacy when Kylan walked in with a woman. They were seated at a table across the room, clearly visible from where we sat. This was no coincidence. Stacy had posted a photo of our appetizer on her Instagram story an hour earlier, tagging the restaurant location. Kylan had clearly seen it and decided to show up. The entire time, he kept making sure I noticed them, laughing too loudly, touching her arm constantly, glancing over to check if I was watching. The woman seemed completely unaware she was being used as a prop in his pathetic attempt to make me jealous. I refused to give him the reaction he wanted. Stacy and I continued our dinner, ignoring them completely. After about 30 minutes of getting no response from me, Kylan got up and headed to the restroom, deliberately walking past our table. As he passed, he leaned down and said just loud enough for me to hear, This could still be us if you'd stop being so dramatic. That was it. I stood up, looked him directly in the eyes, and told him clearly, leave me alone. Do not contact me, my friends, or my family again. We are done. If you continue, I'll get a restraining order. Kylan's face turned red, and he hissed that I was making a scene over nothing. I sat back down, and he stormed out of the restaurant, leaving his date looking completely confused at their table. Stacy and I paid our bill and left quickly after that. The poor woman he was with looked mortified. I almost wanted to warn her about what she was getting into. Saturday morning, Kylan's manipulation tactics took a new turn. He posted a long, vague Instagram post about forgiveness and misunderstandings in relationships. Then he shared several old photos of us in his stories with captions like, missing the real connection we had, and sometimes people lash out when they're hurt. The audacity of this man trying to rewrite our breakup as some mutual misunderstanding. Sunday brought the biggest surprise yet. I was grocery shopping when I literally ran my cart into Kylan's ex-girlfriend, Kellen. I recognized her from photos I'd seen during our relationship. Kellen explained that she'd seen Kylan's recent posts and figured out what was happening. She wanted to warn me that when she broke up with him 2 years ago, right before he met me, he spent months trying to get her back, showing up at her workplace, contacting her friends, even dating her coworker briefly to stay connected to her life. And then came the gut punch. Many of the romantic gestures Kylan had made for me, the poems, the specific date ideas, even certain phrases he used, were recycled directly from his relationship with her. The original poems he wrote for me, and later sent to Lilith, were actually first written for Kellen. I asked why she was telling me all this. She said she wished someone had warned her about his patterns when they broke up, and she wanted to help me avoid the months of harassment she'd endured. She eventually had to move to a new apartment and change her phone number to get away from him. I left that conversation feeling strangely validated, but also deeply disturbed. Everything about our relationship suddenly seemed fake. Not just his social media presence, but the romantic gestures I'd thought were special and unique to us. Monday morning, yesterday, I woke up to dozens of notifications. Overnight, Kylan had gone on a posting spree, sharing screenshots of text conversations between us. The screenshots were heavily edited and taken completely out of context to make it look like I had been possessive and unstable throughout our relationship. In his captions, he claimed I had created the Lilith profile because of my severe insecurity and trust issues, and that he tried to be patient with my emotional problems. He ended the post series with, I'm sharing this not to hurt Milana, but because I'm worried about her and hope she gets the help she needs. I wanted to respond with my own receipts, the screenshots of his conversations with Lilith, the messages from his mother, the warnings from his ex. But I knew engaging publicly would only feed into his narrative that I'm obsessed with him. Instead, I called his mother again. I explained what he was posting and how he was trying to damage my reputation. She was mortified and promised to speak with him immediately. 3 hours later, all the posts about me were deleted and his profile went private. This morning, Shane texted me saying Kylan's mom had shown up at their apartment yesterday and had a major confrontation with him. She apparently threatened to stop helping with money if he continued harassing me or posting about me online. Shane said Kylan was furious, but seemed to be taking the threat seriously. For now, things have quieted down. I've strengthened my privacy settings on all accounts and warned my workplace about the situation. Just as I was about to wrap this up, Stacy called. Kylan just announced on Instagram that he's moving to Miami next month for a major business opportunity. I'm skeptical about whether it's true or just another manipulation tactic, but either way, distance would be welcome at this point. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I've waited to post again because I wanted to be sure things were truly resolved. So much has happened, but here goes. First, Kylan did actually move to Miami, but not for the major business opportunity he claimed. The real story came out gradually, and it's way more embarrassing for him than I could have imagined. Remember Shane, Kylan's roommate? He reached out about 3 weeks after my last post. We met up, and he filled in some major gaps in my understanding of what really happened after our confrontation. According to Shane, Kylan's entrepreneur business was barely making any money. His flashy Instagram lifestyle was almost entirely funded by his parents, particularly his mom. After she showed up at their apartment, threatening to cut him off financially if he kept harassing me, she also demanded to see his business records and bank statements. Apparently, Kylan had been telling his parents he was running a successful online business when, in reality, he had only 2 small clients and was spending most of his time creating content for his personal brand. He'd been using the business expense, money they sent to fund his fake lifestyle, the restaurants, the trips, the clothes, all while barely earning enough to cover his portion of the rent. When his mom discovered this, she was done. She told him he had 2 options, move back home to Ohio and work for his dad's company, or move to Miami, where his uncle owns a firm and could give him an actual job with accountability. She would help with moving expenses and 3 months of rent in Miami. But after that, he was on his own. The major business opportunity was basically his family's last attempt to get him to grow up and stop playing entrepreneur on Instagram. Shane said Kylan was furious and kept ranting about how no one understood his vision or appreciated his brand building, but ultimately had no choice but to accept the Miami offer. Before he left, Kylan tried one last time to reconnect with me. He showed up at my apartment building on a Sunday morning. Fortunately, I wasn't home. I was at brunch with Stacy. My neighbor George texted me that some guy had been knocking on my door for 10 minutes, then sat in the hallway for another hour before leaving a letter. I asked George to throw the letter away without reading it, but he'd already opened it, thinking it might be important. He texted me a photo of it. The letter was 8 pages long, handwritten, full of manipulative nonsense about how I was the only one who ever believed in him, and how he was moving to Miami to become the man I deserved. There was also a lot of blame shifting. How my test with the fake profile showed I never trusted him, which forced him to react badly. He ended it with, "When I make it big in Miami, I know you'll regret how you handled things. My door will always be open when you realize what you threw away." The audacity. Even in his goodbye letter, he couldn't take responsibility or acknowledge what he did wrong. It was still somehow my fault, and he was still positioning himself as the prize I would eventually come crawling back to. I told George to throw it away and thanked him for the heads up. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. About a month after he moved, I was at a work happy hour when I got a string of notifications from Instagram. Kylan had tagged me in 20 old photos of us together, all posted within minutes of each other. Each caption was more desperate than the last, missing what was real, the one who got away. Sometimes you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone. I immediately untagged myself from all of them and blocked his account, but the damage was done. Several colleagues and friends had already seen the notifications. People started texting me asking if we were back together. Even my dad called, concerned that Kylan was acting weird online again. I decided enough was enough. I called his mother. I'd kept her number after our previous conversations. She answered immediately and sounded utterly exhausted. I explained what Kylan had done and how it was affecting my work and personal life. She apologized profusely and promised to address it with him. The next day, all the photos were deleted. His mom texted me saying she'd had a come-to-Jesus talk with Kylan and his uncle in Miami. They laid down the law. If he contacted me again in any way, his uncle would terminate his employment, and his parents would completely cut financial ties. Around this time, I ran into Shane at a shop. He mentioned that before Kylan left, he found a notebook in their apartment with actual scripted conversations and date ideas. Shane said it included details about which stories work best with different types of women, and how to adjust his personality based on what each woman seemed to respond to. Shane even took a photo of a page because he found it so bizarre. It had a literal flowchart of how to respond to different reactions when reciting his self-written poems. That notebook explained so much about why Kylan always seemed to have the perfect thing to say. He wasn't intuitive or especially connected to me. He was literally following a script he'd refined through trial and error with multiple women. Yesterday, I received a certified letter from a law firm in Ohio. For a moment, I panicked, thinking Kylan was trying to sue me for something ridiculous. Instead, it was a formal letter from his parents' attorney stating that Kylan has agreed to cease all contact with me, directly or indirectly. The letter included a signed statement from Kylan acknowledging that any further contact would result in legal consequences. I'm not naive enough to think a piece of paper will magically change who Kylan is, but it shows his parents are serious about preventing further harassment. It also gives me legal recourse if he ever tries to contact me again. It feels like a chapter has finally, officially closed. 3 years of my life, gone, but with it, a massive lesson learned about recognizing true character versus a curated performance. I'm rebuilding now, stronger and much wiser. Oh, and as a final, almost poetic, touch, I was organizing my closet yesterday and found a small box of Kylan's things I'd forgotten about, just some toiletries and a couple of t-shirts he'd left at my place. I guess some things are just meant to be thrown out with the trash.